Yo, what's up guys, hope you guys are doing good. So today we are gonna see what if Naruto was betrayed by villagers when he was banished from Konoha village, part 1. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. So let's get into the video. What? The horrified shriek of a single shinobi echoed throughout Konoha. It was the only sound that could be heard, everything else was as quiet as death. No birds even dared to chirp. Inside of a building, a 16-year-old blonde ninja was standing before Konoha's council of elders with a look of pure disbelief on his face. Shock was visible in the depths of his impossibly blue eyes. He started to shake his head defiantly. No, this can't be true. You can't do this. You're lying. The impassive elders seated before him looked on with uncaring eyes. They felt no regret for what was happening. This child was an abomination and shouldn't even be allowed to live. They would have done this earlier had they been given the chance. The dark-haired man with wide eyes that seemed to hold a tinge of victory sneered, "Naruto Uzumaki, the council has reached a decision and you shall abide by it regardless of your personal feelings. You have failed to retrieve Sasuke Uchiha from Orochimaru and therefore you have failed the village. Demon child, you are hereby banished from the Hidden Leaf." Naruto dropped to his knees and tears filled his cerulean eyes. This can't be. Bachan wouldn't allow this. Why is this happening? It's not fair. But apparently the man was not done. You are to leave immediately. If you have not left the vicinity of Konoha within 1 hour, you shall be executed on sight. Oh, and we also must take back that headband as it is property of the village. When Naruto didn't move, he motioned for one of the Anbu present to approach the boy. The Anbu appeared in front of him and in one swift motion, pulled the headband off of Naruto's forehead. It was at that moment that something snapped inside of the blonde. The thing that he treasured most, his village, was being taken from him. And with the village, went his friends. All of his precious people would be gone. He was alone. He was empty. It was just like when he was younger. He was the demon child and no one cared about him. Naruto got up silently and took a step towards the head council member. His bangs hid his eyes from view and immersed them in shadow. Hiashi Hyuga, sensing a change in the atmosphere, looked towards the banished boy. And then, something unexpected happened. Something none of the elders could have predicted. This boy, after all, had loved the village, no matter what they threw at him. No matter how badly they treated him. They didn't expect it to change even now. Unfortunately for them, it did. Naruto suddenly looked up at the Hyuga clan head, meeting his gaze with a fierce glare. The normally indifferent man gasped. He was no longer looking into the eyes of Naruto Uzumaki. He was now looking at the cruel blood-red eyes of a demon. Intakes of breath could be heard all around the room. The boy's pupils were slitted and only anger was visible within his eyes. The boy's face began to take on a more feral appearance as his canines sharpened and the strange whisker-like marks on his cheeks darkened. An evil aura began to overtake the room. And then he spoke. "You have just made a horrible mistake." The council could hardly believe that such a demonic voice could come from the blonde that stood in front of them. A few elders shook in their seats from the sheer power of the killing intent. The voice echoed around the room like a scene right out of a horror movie. "I will make you bastards regret this day. I will make you regret the moment you decided to banish me from this village. I hope you realize what you've just done. You have made a powerful enemy. By banishing me, you have sealed the fate of yourselves and your village." Naruto shook with fury and hatred was visible in his red eyes. He spat on the ground and then growled. A wave of flames originated from where he stood, spreading out and licking everything around it like a wildfire. And then he was gone. That day changed Naruto Uzumaki forever. It was an hour later and a pink-haired Kunoichi could be seen running through Konoha. Her face was red from exertion as she raced to the village gates. She wore a red dress with black knee-length shorts under it. "Lady Tsunade," she cried. A blonde woman who looked to be in her early 20s greeted the girl with a wave. At first it looked like a normal greeting, but the woman's sharp eyes picked up on an undercurrent of panic from the girl. "What's wrong with Sakura-chan?" she asked, concern visible in her hazel-colored eyes. "It takes a lot to get Sakura worked up like this. It's Naruto-kun. I can't find him anywhere. Ever since we got back from our last attempt to rescue Sasuke, he's been missing. Some injured shinobi came to the hospital this morning from a mission and I was healing them all day, so I didn't notice sooner." Sakura babbled on, another sigh of her worry. "Naruto-kun," Tsunade said, "I'm sure he's fine. If anyone can take care of themselves, it's that boy." However, Sakura didn't look quite satisfied. "I mean we're a team and we're friends and I should know where he is, right? What if he's in danger or half dead from training so hard? That's what he usually does when we come back from a failed mission. He hasn't even fully healed from that battle with Sasuke." The Godin frowned at the mention of that traitor. He had once been part of Naruto and Sakura's genin team and they had been close friends. But he had betrayed the village and gone to Orochimaru for training. She hated to think of how much that had hurt Naruto. Sakura, I just got back from Suna, so I have a lot of work to do. However, I'll see what I can do, maybe ask around. I hope that corrupted council hasn't tried to pull anything. Sakura nodded. Thank you, Tsunade-sama. Come on, why don't you accompany me to my office? That way I don't need to send anyone to go find you if I stumble across that baka. They set off towards the center of Konoha, where the Hokage's residence was located. Tsunade opened the door to her office, only to find Hiashi Hyuga, the head of the Council of Elders, waiting for her. Her detail-oriented senses noticed a gleam of satisfaction in his eye, as if he had accomplished something award-worthy. However, being probably the best medic nin alive, the Godame picked up small things like his breathing, posture, and increased heart rate. This revealed an undercurrent of fear. Hello, Hokage-sama. I see that you are back from your meeting in Suna. Hiashi's wide eyes rose up to meet hers. Sakura looked at the man, feeling like he was hiding something. Tsunade's gaze hardened into a glare. What is this about, Hiashi-san? If you are trying to pull one of your evil schemes, then I can assure you that whatever you threaten me with will have absolutely no effect. Sakura glared at the man with her emerald eyes, silently agreeing with her sensei. I only wish to speak with you, that's all, and then he looked over at the pink-haired Kunoichi and added alone. Frustrated, Tsunade hissed, whatever you are going to say can be said in front of my apprentice. Spit it out, Hyuga. She really did not like this man. As you wish. I merely wanted to inform you that I have taken care of a great problem in our village. Children, adults, shinobi, and civilians alike are much safer now that a certain dangerous person is out of the way. He was simply a time bomb waiting to explode. Tsunade paled. No, he doesn't mean. How dare you? She snarled as comprehension dawned on her face. What have you done? Sakura was shocked by the Hokage's sudden outburst. She was clueless. What did the Hyuga mean by that? This was a long time in the making, Tsunade-sama, Hiashi said, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he added the suffix. Everyone will thank me for getting rid of that. His voice was cut off by a hand at his throat. The Hyuga clan leader found himself pressed up against a wall, struggling for breath. However, it was not Tsunade's famous temper that had flared up. Sakura beat her to it. What? Did you? Do you think so? Sakura hissed, her voice as cold as death. Tsunade stood next to her, shaking with rage. Hiashi suddenly reconsidered coming here, but it was too late now. The council banished that demon brat. We'll never see his face again. Naruto Uzumaki is finally out of this village and out of our lives, Hiashi sneered. Suddenly, the world seemed to freeze. A deadly silence descended upon the room. For all they knew, it could have been the world. And then, what are you? Screamed a very upset Hyuga as he was thrown through a wall. Someone down below on the street screamed at the sight of the dignified Hyuga flying over their heads. A crowd gathered below as a very pissed-off Hokage flew out of the hole behind him, her eyes glued to the doomed clan head with murder as their intent. Not a second later, a pink blur raced up and punched the Hyuga in the face with enough force to bring down a building. Shrieks of "You bastard!" from Sakura, and what the hell were you thinking? Tsunade could be heard as they pummeling the helpless man. Kakashi heard the screaming and ran to the source of the noise. Is the Hokage under attack? He thought. A huge wave of killing intent washed over him. He sprinted faster, now flanked with roughly a dozen Anbu. What is going on? Didn't Tsunade-sama just get back from a meeting in Suna? And then he saw it. Kakashi stopped dead in his tracks. Holysh, his words were cut off by more enraged screams. His eyes were met with the sight of the Godame Hokage and Sakura Haruno beating the crap out of the Hyuga clan head in the sky. He winced as a chakra-fueled fist slammed into Hiashi Hyuga's gut. Apparently the clan leader really wasn't that great of a fighter as everyone thought. What could he possibly have done for Tsunade-sama to risk her status as Hokage and publicly fight him? And not only her, but Sakura too. Kakashi knew he had to stop this. He and the Anbu launched themselves into the air. It took 7 Anbu to restrain Tsunade for the few moments they needed. One formed a hand sign and they all disappeared. 4 more Anbu went to Sakura and did the same, vanishing in a cloud of smoke. Kakashi leaped towards Hiashi, placed a hand on the man's shoulder and disappeared as well. The onlookers blinked, wondered what had happened, shrugged and then walked off and resumed their daily business. Obviously, they had a very simple thought process. Tsunade, Sakura, Kakashi, Hiashi, and multiple Anbu were now in a large interrogation cell deep within the Anbu headquarters. Tsunade was still screeching like a madwoman and Sakura looked like she was ready to murder someone. Hiashi refused to be looked down upon and held his head high despite the circumstances. Tsunade's voice, which suddenly turned eerily calm, broke the awkward silence. With my power as the Hokage, I vote for the execution of Hiashi Hyuga immediately. Her voice cut through the air like a dagger. Kakashi's one visible eye widened. Some of the Anbu looked shocked as well, except for a few that looked down at the floor guiltily. What could he have possibly done to deserve that, Lady Tsunade? Kakashi didn't think he had ever seen the Godame this livid before, even when Jiraiya had been caught peeping, and that was saying something. He manipulated the council into thinking that I had given them an order. He went behind my back and performed actions without my consent, and Tsunade's voice broke at the end. Kakashi stared in disbelief as tears formed into the legendary Sannin's eyes. Sakura finished for her. Kakashi-sensei, he banished Naruto-kun. They banished him for not bringing back Sasuke, and he thought it was an order from the Hokage. He left this morning. Kakashi Naruto-kun's gone. This time it was Kakashi who had to be restrained. And just like that, a misunderstanding caused all hell to break loose. But no one would know that for a while. They didn't know what they'd done to him. They didn't know just how hard he would take it, how it would create a hole in his heart that couldn't be healed. What a mistake that was. And the worst part is that they have no idea how far he'll go. And soon, they wouldn't know what hit them. Naruto's hair blew around him, wild and unruly, since there was nothing on his forehead to hold it back. His eyes, instead of being dulled with pain, were strangely sharp and intense, almost icy. His hand balled into fists and his eyes flashed. And then, he took a step towards the Akatsuki base. A step towards destiny. 5 years later, small blades of grass quivered in the gentle breeze. Trees stood tall and strong, with the occasional leaf spiraling down to the soft ground below. It seemed to be a day just like any other day, but apparently someone had other plans. A small stream ran through the lush undergrowth, a stream that would soon run red with blood. 10 figures stood on the horizon, observing the village that would soon be nothing more than a massive graveyard. Their cloaks, black with red clouds, blew about them in the wind. The silence had an eerie feel to it, as if the whole forest was holding its breath. Suddenly, all 10 figures vanished, completely disappearing all at once. The slaughter had begun. Moments later, the screaming started. Shrieks of pain and horror filled the air, along with the scent of blood. Many shinobi had already been killed, their bodies mangled and virtually unrecognizable. The simple music note design on the dead villagers' headbands glistened in the deceitfully cheerful sunlight. The screaming abruptly stopped, just as suddenly as it had begun. Shortly after, the 10 cloaked figures could be seen again on the horizon. They walked away, seemingly unharmed. And then, just like that, they were gone. Konoha was bustling with activity. Everyone, civilians and shinobi alike, had gotten word of something very troubling. Shizune was busy sprinting through the streets, intent on the Hokage's mansion. She burst into the Godame's office, face flushed after running all the way across the village. "Tsunade same," she cried. Tsunade looked up with slight interest, although her eyes were still dulled from the pain of losing a precious person. "What, Shizune?" she asked in a tired voice. The past 5 years had been hard on her. Although her appearance was still one of a woman in her 20s, she now acted much older. Tsunade was often tired, drunk, or just plain annoyed. Shizune made a point to ignore her bored tone and answered with all of her previous energy. "Tsunade-sama, the hidden sound village, it's been completely destroyed." "What?" screeched Tsunade in disbelief. Shizune was mentally relieved at this normal reaction. Word just came from Jiraiya. He apparently had spies in the vicinity and just got wind of what happened. "The entire village has been decimated, there are no survivors." One of Jiraiya's men described the streets to have been flooded with blood, the brunette said, breathless. Tsunade's eyes were still wide from the news. The entire village. Was Orochimaru present as well? Was he killed? Shizune shook her head. "It is impossible to tell. Bodies are still being identified, although many were mangled beyond recognition," she shuddered. Tsunade nodded. It would have been nice for Konoha's longtime enemy, also her ex-teammate, to have been taken care of, though she didn't want to get her hopes up. Who could have done it? There must have been an army, right? After all, this is Orochimaru's village we're talking about. They have tons of military strength, the Godame thought out loud. Shizune looked nervous. Under Hokage's questioning gaze, she answered quietly, "And no." "What do you mean no? There was no army." "Wow. There must have been some seriously skilled shinobi to take down the hidden sound village without anyone knowing. I mean seriously, they killed off every single genin and all other ninjas without the power of an army. How is that even possible?" Tsunade muttered. Shizune started. She was obviously on edge. Did you say something?" "It was the Akatsuki," Shizune finished quietly. Tsunade's eyes widened. How could this be? She had no idea the Akatsuki had gotten so strong. Lately, they had been more invasive than usual and hadn't truly been seen for years, but this much power. Was it even possible? She was about to question Shizune further when the door to her office flew open. A familiar pink-haired Kunoichi rushed into the room. She stared at them, her emerald eyes wide. "Sakura really hasn't changed much in the past 5 years." She didn't have a family of her own, and ever since Naruto left she was never the same. On her face, true smiles were hard to come by and were to be cherished whenever they graced her features. Her bubblegum pink hair was still cut short, though in a more flattering way that had more layers in the front and side bangs that framed her face on the right side. Sakura was also probably an inch or two taller, which Tsunade noticed as she stood there in the doorway. And, of course, she had advanced in rank and was now one of the few who were ranked as elite. Tsunade absently mumbled something about people not bothering to knock when she was cut off by the new arrival. Tsunade-sama. Is it true? Did someone somehow manage to destroy Orochimaru's village? Sakura cried, unsure about the rumor that was flying around Konoha. Yes, Sakura. It's true. Jiraiya's spy network found out about the event just this morning, the Hokage answered, still a bit shaken. She rubbed her brow, trying to ease the headache that was slowly forming. Who? Was all Sakura could say after a few minutes of shocked silence. Akatsuki. That one word sent a chill through all three women. Even though they hadn't had any contact with the elusive organization, it was obvious that they were gaining power. But how? They stayed in the Hokage's office for another 15 minutes, discussing what Konoha should do. It was decided that since the hidden sound was an enemy, they would find out as much information as possible about the slaughter and also keep an eye out for Orochimaru. That man had a habit of coming out alive of almost anything, given his dream of immortality, though this time all of Konoha wanted to make sure he really was dead. Tsunade had also given Sakura orders to select 2 other elites and act as team leader for an S-rank mission. Her squad was to travel to the source of the matter. The Hidden Sound Village. Their mission was to find out what exactly happened there and who did it. They had 2 weeks. Somewhere, deep within a mountain, plans were being made. The Akatsuki were extremely pleased with the success of their latest mission and were now beginning the second phase of their plan. The couple people were gathered in a room, talking quietly among themselves in low voices. There was an activity that prevented anyone on the outside from eavesdropping, but the matter was of such importance that they still talked quietly out of habit. A fish-like man with blue skin and gills on his face was speaking to a girly man with long blonde hair. Madara, how much longer until Leader Sama gets here? The blue man asked impatiently. The other man, Dadara, simply shrugged. How am I supposed to know? We need to begin capturing the rest of the everything is going ahead of schedule, so we'll need to capture more, and that's something that takes time. The blue man, Kisum, complained, eager to get to work. Kisum, I'm sure Leader Sama already has a flawless strategy to capture them. Your impatience is degrading, said the emotionless voice of a raven-haired man with spinning red eyes. Yay, whatever Itachi, Kisum groaned. Boom. Dadara and Kisum whipped around at the sudden sound. Itachi just turned slowly. The doors to the meeting room had been thrust open dramatically and smashed into the wall. One day, he is going to break those, thought the Uchiha. Standing at the door, with his hair blowing wildly around his face, stood a man. He wore a black cloak that moved with him like a shadow. The dark color perfectly offset the blood-red clouds that decorated it. The cloak was exactly like every other Akatsuki member's, except for the red kanji for fox on the back. He was obviously a shinobi, although he wore no headband. His hair was a light blonde that had been unruly and wild ever since anyone could remember, and his lean body was accentuated with strong muscles. When he lifted his head, the man's intimidating blue eyes became visible and glittered maliciously as he stepped into the room. Seeing the 3 of them gathered there, he slowly began to grin. The grin was full of eagerness and anticipation and was very familiar to the people standing in the room. The motion enhanced the 3 dark whisker-like marks that were etched into each side of the man's face. Madara, Kisum, and Itachi bowed slightly with respect as he entered the room. Leader Sama, they acknowledged. 3 blurs leapt through the treetops of a forest far from their home. They were powerful ninja, judging from the great massive chakra they each possessed. Each wore a headband adorned with the symbol of the hidden leaf. Sakura, how far do we need to go from here? Asked a brunette shinobi with stoic wide eyes. The pink-haired ninja looked up. Niji, it looks like we'll be in for another 10 minutes of travel. We should be there shortly. It's about time, muttered the third, wiping the sweat off of his forehead before taking off again. Red fangs were tattooed on either side of his face, and messy brown hair framed his face. A large white dog followed closely behind him, his sturdy legs rippling with muscles, as he caught up to his owner. Hiba, you remind me so much of how he used to act on missions, Sakura thought to herself. She missed her first teammates very dearly, although the blonde's departure hit her the hardest. Sakura desperately tried to avoid those painful memories. He was someone she never expected to lose. It was roughly 10 minutes later when the team of 3 elite reached the Hidden Sound Village. The silence was deafening and weighed heavily on their ears. Kiba shuddered as the scent of blood reeked through his nose. He reassured the huge white dog beside him with a pat on the head. Akamaru whimpered nervously. Kiba was about to say something about the smell when he looked ahead and froze. Seeing his hesitation, Sakura and Niji ran to catch up with their teammate. He had reached the entrance to the village and was standing just above the main gates, feet glued to them with chakra. Hiba, what's oh? Sakura cut herself off with a gasp as she surveyed the scene before her. Niji's pale eyes widened, for once a clear display of emotion on his usually indifferent face. Akamaru let out a mournful howl that could be heard for miles around. Before them lay a scene of pure horror. Blood ran through the streets like runoff after a heavy rain. The thick red liquid covered most surfaces. And, much to the team's horror, bodies paved the roads. Dead men, women, and children lay in the midst of it all. Death was everywhere. What could have happened here? Could the Akatsuki really have done all this with just 10 people? Sakura was in shock. I don't see how it is possible, especially with a village of this caliber. Niji looked away from the slaughtered village before him. Kiba just stood, rooted to the spot, as his eyes took in everything. He suppressed a shudder as the wind blew and another wave of the foul stench of death washed over him. This is horrible. Even if this is Orochimaru's village, I don't know if I would have wished this fate upon them. After all, there are innocent people down there who now lay in pools of their own blood. Just then, a figure clad in black shinobi clothes appeared before them. He nodded a quick greeting at the team before speaking. I am a spy of Jiraiya's. As much as I would like to give you my real name, I cannot, for it is far too dangerous. Please call me Itsuki, I hope that will suffice. You are from Konoha, right? Sakura, Niji, and Kiba nodded. They looked at the shinobi before them. His black clothes were loose and disguised his body, and he wore no village headband. He had unusual blue hair which was mostly covered in a hood, but other than that there were no distinguishable features visible. Parts of his unique hair stuck out to frame his face. Itsuki's whole face was also covered in shadow, the Konohanins couldn't even see his eyes. After nodding, Kiba quickly averted his eyes to avoid the horrible scene that lay behind the new arrival. Itsuki smiled grimly. Well, in that case, I have some bad news for you. You will probably want to deliver this information to the Goddamn Hokage immediately. Kiba's head snapped up. News? You mean other than a whole village slaughtered by the most feared organization in the world? His voice was harsh, which surprised Sakura. He never used to speak like that, he was always joking around and goofing off. I guess his banishment affected Kiba more than anyone knew. Yes, I'm afraid so. We have gathered evidence from all over, and things are beginning to fall into place, things that we would have rather not have happened. You see, Konohanin, the Akatsuki have already captured 4 out of the 9. Their plan of world domination is already in motion. The 3 stared at him in horror. After the initial surprise and thoughts of how this could affect Konoha, they were all filled with dread. A single thought ran through all of their minds. Naruto. Deep within the Akatsuki base, a man prepared to sneeze, but the urge quickly subsided. Wind whistled through an empty village. A village that used to be teeming with life, but was now only a ghost town. The wind blew everywhere, touching every surface as it passed by. A shinobi's brown hair blew around his face, as if it were attacking him. He narrowed his eyes and wrinkled his nose against the sickening stench of death the wind carried. What reason could Akatsuki possibly have for slaughtering an entire village like this? Kiba thought. Kiba, Sakura, and Niji, along with Jiraiya's spy Itsuki, had been investigating the Hidden Sound village for the past 3 hours. They had grouped themselves into pairs so that they could cover more ground, Kiba with Sakura and Niji with Itsuki. After hearing Itsuki's troubling news, Sakura had wanted to report back to Konoha immediately, but Niji simply shook his head and told her that since they were going to cut their mission short anyway, they might as well bring back some details about the village so that Tsunade wouldn't have to send out another team. Kiba, surprisingly, hadn't said anything, and Sakura thought she caught a troubled look flash through his eyes. Right now, Niji and Itsuki were exploring a section of the town where the foul stench of burned flesh filled the air. All of the bodies around the two had been burned horribly beyond recognition, all that was left of the villagers were piles of charred corpses. Ashes blew about them in the wind. It didn't take a genius to figure out that some kind of massive fire had been used. Quickly making a note of this, Niji wasted no time in following the blue-haired shinobi to another section of the Hidden Sound village. The first part of the village that Sakura and Kiba searched was disturbing to say the least. It was unnerving because all of the people looked to have attacked each other, like crazed animals fighting to the death. Their corpses had looks that humans shouldn't have been able to have on their face while they reached out to strangle their neighbors. Even frozen in death, the horror that had gone on in this area was apparent. Sakura walked over to one of the dead and observed how its arms were painfully contorted, as if it had been resisting its own body. This must have been powerful. She shuddered and then moved on. Another section of the town was strangely free of blood. The lack of blood in that particular area was surprising, but when Niji saw the villagers, he was shocked. Next to him, Itsuki's hands clenched into fists. Everyone looked to have just dropped dead. No battle, no fighting, nothing. As if everyone just passed out at the same time and never got up. Civilians and shinobi alike lay on the ground and could have looked like they were just taking a nap except for the way that they were unnaturally sprawled out. Byakugan, Niji said. The veins around his eyes became more prominent as he activated his. He wanted to know how these people died. Even with his family's bloodline trait, he had trouble finding anything unusual. After a few minutes of searching, however, the only thing that stood out to him was the way that all of the bodies had a dark palm-shaped mark over their hearts. He furrowed his brow in confusion. How did that kill all of those people? Wouldn't they have noticed someone using taijutsu on everyone? And then it hit him. This handprint was not something left by a physical touch. It was a chakra burn. Such advanced the enemy must have had amazing chakra control to have used an ninjutsu that caused all of these people to drop dead like that. The mark is the only thing that's left. After investigating most of the Hidden Sound village, the two teams met up at the last section. Sakura couldn't help it, she gasped. "Oh my god," Kiba managed to say in a low voice. Itsuki just looked at the scene with a look of pure disgust on his face. The enemy must have been very bloodthirsty, was all Niji could say. The other three tried to nod in agreement but couldn't quite manage it. Before them was by far the bloodiest scene yet. Bodies were strewn all over, their throats ripped out, and chests clawed apart. Large claw marks adorned the nearby buildings. What could have done this? Kiba thought. It looks like some kind of wild animal, Sakura stuttered. To be honest, it looked like a pack of demons had descended into the village and shredded every living thing in sight. But the ninjas knew better. There was only one Akatsuki member. A shiver went through all of the Konoha ninja as they thought about meeting that particular shinobi in battle. White, frothy water rushed off of a cliff somewhere in waterfall country. The roaring of the waterfall blocked out most other sounds, making it an ideal meeting place for shinobi. There was a small cave hidden behind the roaring water, unknown to most people. The two shinobi standing in the cave would not have been noticed by any passers-by. Kisame and Itachi were currently waiting for the rest of their orders. They had been told by their leader to meet at this place at midday, and so they had. Both disguised their chakra signatures. The footstep behind them made both S-class nins flinch involuntarily. Kisame whirled around only to find their blonde leader leaning casually against the cave wall. Kisame had no idea how he had gotten by them, a mystery that remains to be solved. Itachi's eye twitched, for he was obviously annoyed at allowing himself to be snuck up on. The Akatsuki leader grinned fiercely, an amused light dancing in his eyes. "I see you've made it," he said softly. Itachi and Kisame nodded. "What's the plan?" Kisame asked. The grin became wider. Itachi started to get an uneasy feeling most missing nins of this caliber weren't quite so happy. "You are going to infiltrate the hidden waterfall village under the guise of travelers who simply wish to experience the sights and sounds of the village. By using a henge, no one will be able to recognize you. After all, this particular village isn't exactly known for its military strength. All the same, we don't want to encourage any violence." He gave a pointed look to Kisame, who was known to cause unnecessary fights. "Once you have successfully entered the village, you are to find a by the name of Fu. The seven-tailed horn beetle is sealed inside of her. Capture her and bring her back to headquarters for safekeeping until the time comes for you know what. Oh, and don't reveal yourselves unless absolutely necessary," he finished. He handed Itachi a paper with a drawing of a woman with pale green hair and red insect-like eyes. "That's her." Taking all of this in, Kisame nodded. Before doing the same, Itachi asked, "And you, Naruto-sama? You haven't been out of the base for years. What are you going to do?" It might have been his eyes playing tricks on him, but Itachi could have sworn he saw a flash of uneasiness on Naruto's face, but the shadows were probably playing tricks on him, and it was gone so quickly he wasn't sure if he had really seen anything at all. "Me?" Naruto chuckled. "I'm going to start the first phase of our other plan." Kisame looked confused. "What plan is that?" Naruto looked him in the eyes. "To infiltrate and ultimately destroy Konoha." Kisame heard a hint of revenge in those words and grinned in reaction to his own bloodlust. This was going to be good. Itachi couldn't help but smirk at his partner's reaction. "Konoha probably knows by now that we're going after the tailed beasts even more than before. Even if they hate me, it is now in their best interest to protect all of the Jinchuriki. And, as you know, that includes me. So, I'm going to give them exactly what they want." "So you think they're going to come looking for you?" Itachi asked, speaking up quietly. "Yes, I know they will." Kisame frowned. "But how can you be so sure?" Naruto ran a hand through his hair. "I don't think everyone in that village wanted me gone. My old teammate, Sakura, would probably jump at the chance to find me again. If only to beat some sense into me for not bringing back Sasuke anyways, I'm pretty sure they'd rather have me back in the village than have the entire world come to an end. Which is silly, they have no idea what Akatsuki's plans actually are. Konoha really hates this whole organization, so they'll come after me and bring me back to the village for protection to prevent you from getting a hold of me." All three of them were grinning now. Itachi chuckled, if only they knew. After listening to all of their leader's new plan, Itachi and Kisame were fairly surprised at how well thought out it was. Naruto was going to hide his connection to the Akatsuki and dress as a normal shinobi would. Then, he would purposefully allow Konoha ninjas to find him, act like he was all happy that they wanted him back, and accept their apologies etc. Or well, something along those lines. Itachi had a sneaking suspicion that it wouldn't go quite that well, and that Naruto's old anger at the village would bring out his sadistic side, so he'd probably try to secretly hurt them in the process. Regardless of that, however, their plans always seemed to work out. Then, when the time was right, he would steal Konoha's secret scrolls and any information that could possibly be of use to Akatsuki. And of course, for good measure, he would scare the shit out of them by faking being kidnapped by Akatsuki. Either that, or he would reveal his true identity. Unless something better came to mind, he'd choose whichever was more amusing to him. After all, who wouldn't want to see their faces? Neji, Sakura, and Kiba had left the Hidden Sound village, said goodbye to Itsuki, and started the return trip to Konoha. They had been traveling non-stop for the past couple hours, eager to get as far away from the massacre as possible. Right now, they were only a few minutes away from the Hidden Leaf. Each member of the team was deep in thought, thinking in completely different directions. The Akatsuki, what could they gain from massacring Orochimaru's village? Neji thought, what's in it for them? He ran a hand through his dark hair as he continued to ponder the different aspects of the attack. That guy Itsuki, right. What village is he from? He is one of Jiraiya's spies, but I don't recognize him at all. I wonder what kind of Kiba they use. Akamaru was right beside him, easily keeping pace with the. As Kiba's faithful nin dog, Akamaru would rarely leave his master's side. Sakura's thoughts, however, were drawn to her old teammate. Naruto, please be safe. Somehow, I'm going to convince Lady Tsunade to let me find you and bring you back to Konoha. I will not let this become anything like Sasuke's defection. We will bring you back, Naruto. Just hold out a little longer, we'll find you. The Konoha ninja had made it back to their village in record timing. After giving the guards a quick greeting, they ran to the Hokage's office, eager to deliver the new information as soon as possible. Arin was considering pouring herself a glass of sake when the door to her office burst open. Startled, she looked up to see Sakura Haruno, Neji Hyuga, and Kiba Inyazuka standing before her, panting. Confused, the Godin just stared at them. They weren't supposed to be back for at least another week. Tsunade was about to speak when Sakura abruptly cut her off. Tsunade-sama, we received important information that had to be delivered immediately. We did some brief research at the Hidden Sound village as well, but couldn't stay any longer since we had to report back immediately. Tsunade nodded, still a little confused. What could have gotten them so worked up? Well, spit it out. What's the news? This time it was Kiba who spoke. It's Akatsuki. Not only were they the ones who attacked Orochimaru's village, but they are now kicking their plan into overdrive. They've just recently captured 4-tailed beasts. Tsunade gasped. But so soon. They're capturing them so quickly now. Tsunade-sama, what should we do? Neji asked. He secretly cared very much for Naruto since he was the one that set him free of his fate and actually wanted to bring him back to Konoha. Sakura and Kiba anxiously awaited her answer, silently thinking the same thing. Although no words had been exchanged, the three were so close that they could practically read each other's thoughts. Would they finally get to see Naruto? With a sigh, Tsunade spoke up. I can't find another way around this. Sakura, Neji, Kiba, it is now in the best interest of our village to find, retrieve, and protect Naruto Uzumaki. She choked out the last name. Yes. Sakura cheered, mentally doing a little victory dance. A small smile graced Neji's lips. Kiba grinned happily, and Akamaru bounded over to Tsunade. With a blink, the Godin registered a huge white dog flying at her, but it was too late. Akamaru tackled Tsunade and furiously began licking her face. Sakura burst out laughing, and Kiba scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Shizune poked her head into the room, wondering what the heck was going on, only to find herself in a fit of laughter when she saw the huge dog attacking Tsunade. Wrestling out of Akamaru's grip and wiping her face, Tsunade playfully grabbed the white dog by the scruff and threw him across the room. With a yelp, Akamaru slammed into Kiba and they both went flying into the wall. Tsunade grinned. Shizune went over to pay Akamaru on the head, who instantly recovered. Kiba just lay on the floor in a jumbled heap. With a groan, he stood up, rubbing the side of his head. Neji smirked at the large Akamaru and Kiba's size dent in the wall behind him. Suddenly, though, the happy atmosphere dissipated. Everyone looked towards Tsunade, who was now emitting a nervous aura. They were all baffled as tears started to form in her eyes. Weren't they just laughing and enjoying themselves? What is Tsunade-sama? Sakura asked, worried about her sensei's unusual behavior. It's just that what makes you think that we could find him after all these years? Don't make the mistake of thinking that this will be my first attempt at finding him. I have sent out Anbu before. He's just so good at concealing his trail, and it's obvious that he doesn't want to be found. It was as if he just disappeared. She took a shaky breath and continued. And even if we somehow manage to find him, how could we possibly convince him to come back to Konoha? He still thinks that I gave the orders for his banishment, you know. And I've never found him, so I've never been able to tell him otherwise. By the end of her outburst, the Hokage was sobbing. Shizune was at her side, trying to comfort the grieving woman. The three just stared at her. None of them had even considered Naruto not wanting to come back with them. He was frozen in their minds as a happy, obnoxious kid who loved Konoha with all of his heart. But now they are beginning to realize that they may have been wrong. A lot of things can change in 5 years. Sakura placed a hand on Tsunade's shoulder. In a calm voice, she said, "Don't worry, sensei. We'll find Naruto. We'll talk with him, reason with him. And then, Tsunade-sama, we are going to bring him home." Tsunade stopped crying, and Shizune gave the pink-haired Kunoichi a grateful look. It took a few minutes for Tsunade to put herself together, so everyone waited patiently. Now, as I was saying, Tsunade started back in full Hokage mode now. "I will send 2 teams on an A-rank mission to bring back Naruto. It will be you 3 along with another team for backup that I will personally select. Sakura, you were close to Naruto. Niji, your Byakugan will be an advantage, and Kiba, we need your tracking skills along with Akamaru. You will leave tomorrow at sunrise and meet the other team at the main gate. Do not be late. Do you accept it?" "Yes." The 3 courses. Shizune smiled from her spot next to Godame. The rookie 9 had really grown into fine ninjas. "Dismissed," Tsunade said, and Sakura, Niji, and Kiba all left her office after a quick bow. Once they were gone, the Godame turned her attention to Shizune. "So, who do you think I should send with them?" As Shizune went on and on about various things and the pros cons of having them on a team, Tsunade thought about what it would be like to see Naruto again. She missed his sparkling cerulean eyes, his constantly happy demeanor, and his in-your-face personality. He had wedged himself into her heart as one of her precious people, and she would do everything she could to protect him. "Naruto, please be alright. We're coming." After watching Itachi and Kisame leave their meeting spot, Naruto made a few hand signs and disappeared in a swirl of bright red flames. Back at the Akatsuki's hidden base, he hung up his unique cloak and changed into more common clothes. Naruto examined himself in a mirror. He wore a fitted black t-shirt with a kanji for fox on the back in red, just like his Akatsuki cloak, and it highlighted his muscles nicely. He also wore common-looking plain black pants that were loose so they wouldn't hinder his movements. Typical shinobi sandals were on his feet, and he carried a kunai pouch that had decorative red threads lining the edges. Naruto rolled his eyes, imagining Konoha's reaction to him not wearing orange. It had been sort of a tradition there, him wearing orange. But now, ugh, how he despised that color. "Well, I certainly don't look like I'm an Akatsuki," Naruto thought, which is a shame really. I'd love to see their faces when they found out I was not only part of Akatsuki, but the leader. Hell, I'd probably give them all a heart attack. If only they knew that their greatest enemy was of their own making. That's something I'd like to see. It's funny how banishment was actually the best thing for me. It's so much nicer working under my own rules than having that disgusting village holding me back. His face broke into that dangerous-looking grin again, the one that always seemed to set people on edge. His impossibly blue eyes sparkled mischievously as he thought about how much fun this would be. Sure, he didn't want to go back to Konoha, he liked being governed by his own rules. But he would really enjoy killing the people that caused him so much pain. His grin widened and the whisker-like marks on his face darkened. "Are you ready to get some revenge?" he asked, although the room was empty. "It's about time, Kit. I've been waiting so long for this." Demonic laughter filled the air. Naruto was pleased to have Kyuubi's support. To no one in particular, he announced, "Konoha, here I come." 2 inconspicuous people walked up to a large waterfall. It was huge, and the hundreds of tons of water that rushed towards the ground created a continuous roar of fury. The 2 men were dressed in all neutral colors for the sole purpose of not attracting too much attention. Using a simple, they passed through the thundering water without getting even a drop on them. Looking around, they found themselves in a very dark and very large cavern. The water roared behind them as the 2 supposed travelers observed their surroundings. Immediately spotting a large gate, they made their way towards it. A figure instantly appeared to meet them. "Who are you, and what is your business in the hidden waterfall village?" questioned the guard. "We are simply tired travelers who wish to stay for a night in your village. It is supposed to be quite beautiful," one of the men said. He had brown hair and unusual green eyes. Those eyes flicked around as they took in everything around him. The other stranger pulled out some documents and handed them to the guard. He looked over the papers which identified the 2 men before him as Masaru and Katsu, peaceful civilians who were simply fond of traveling. The waterfall shinobi looked at the second man for a few moments before looking back at the documents. This man had red, almost flame-like hair and dull black eyes. His face displayed no emotion, just like his partner's. Feeling slightly unnerved at the man's unusual appearance, the shinobi nodded his approval and handed back the documents. "Welcome to our village, Masaru-san and Katsu-san," he acknowledged. The two men nodded at him. The village guard then made a signal, and a couple seconds later the large gate was pulled open, allowing them entrance to the village. The brunette and Reed exchanged a look that went unnoticed by the waterfall shinobi and then continued forward. It was now fairly common knowledge that the village hidden in the waterfall had begun to relax its security and now let its allied nations know of its location. Before, outsiders had been strictly forbidden, but now they were welcomed along with the business that they brought. So naturally, Konoha had their location, though they didn't keep it as much of a secret as they should have, and not all of their shinobi were quite as loyal as they thought. Masaru and Katsu stepped into the village, taking a look around. They were met with the sight of a peaceful-looking village situated around an enormous tree. The tree was roughly the size of a large mountain, its trunk thicker than any other tree in existence. A lake was on the other side of the tree, and the surface of it glistened in the sunlight. The air was amazingly calm and serene. The two new arrivals shared a secret smile. On the outside, they seemed to be pleased with the view of the waterfall village. On the inside, however, they were smirking triumphantly. A simple henge and some forged papers had been enough to fool everyone. The blonde Kunoichi walked quickly towards Konoha's gates. As the Hokage, she had the responsibility of assigning teams to missions and making sure that the missions were successfully completed. Normally, the Godin would just hand out the missions and that would be the end of it. However, today's mission was a bit more special. 6 ninja were gathered at the gates. They had been told to wait for her final instructions on their mission. They all turned at the same time once they sensed her arrival. A few greeted her with "Hello Tsunade-sama," and the others just nodded respectfully. Before the Godin stood Sakura, Niji, Kiba, Shikamaru, Hinata, and Kakashi. The silver-haired watched her approach with his one visible eye. Tsunade knew that he wanted to retire soon, but she wouldn't allow it. This mission needed his supervision. He was a strong ninja with exceptional skills and experience, and the Godin would not let that go to waste. Kakashi had, however, inevitably changed after the banishment of his student 5 years ago, and his loyalty to Konoha had been severely tested. Tsunade nodded back, smiling slightly as she looked over the rest of the group. Kiba was standing with Akamaru at his side, as usual, still turning slightly towards Shikamaru, who he had been talking to before. Nara had pretty impressive skills for someone of his age, and had even made Anbu about 4 years ago. That genius had yet to apply himself to his work though, due to his apparently hereditary laziness. Her eyes shifted to Niji and Hinata. They had gotten along much better in the past few years than in their genuine days. Niji used to despise Hinata because she was from the main house of their clan, the Hyugas, and therefore deemed more important than him. However, once they really got to know each other, they had become close friends who looked out for each other. That particular hatred, on Niji's part, and nervousness, on Hinata's part, had taken a while to dissolve. Now, the two acted more like family, and Hinata had almost completely gotten rid of her stutter, something Tsunade was infinitely proud of. Sakura was standing off to the side a bit, appearing to be deep in thought. Lines of concern were etched into her face as she puzzled something out. As much as the Hokage would have liked to see the pink-haired Kunoichi back to her old talkative self, she knew this was something Sakura had to do. And besides, she was an exceptional ninja with a sharp mind, so she would figure out whatever was bothering her before long. As you all know, your assignment is to work together to retrieve Naruto Uzumaki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. We have not had any contact with him in over 5 years, so approach with caution. Use force if necessary, but not with the intent to kill. Bringing him safely back to the village so that he can be protected from Akatsuki is your top and only priority. The 6 ninja nodded, already aware of the terms of the mission. Tsunade looked them over and then continued. We have recently received info that a blonde-haired man greatly resembling Naruto has been spotted in Wind Country. There is a chance that it is him, so that is where I would like you to start your search. Therefore, I would recommend heading to the Hidden Sand Village. Kakashi tensed at that. Ever since Naruto's wrongful banishment, Suna and Konoha had been at the brink of breaking their treaty. The Kazekage had been furious and would have declared war on the Hidden Leaf Village if Tsunade had not intervened. Konoha had never seen him so livid. Gaara now knew that it had all been a huge betrayal within the village, one that has not gone unpunished. Internally, Tsunade grinned evilly as she remembered Hiashi Hyuga's execution. As the first part of his punishment, Hiashi had been given a nasty sickness that caused his face to swell up immensely and for ugly red blisters to appear all over his body. After experiencing the pain of the villagers' rejection due to his appearance, Hiashi had been subjected to Tsunade's scalpel. Once his body had been sliced open and experimented on for 2 full days, which had caused him excruciating pain due to him being conscious the entire time, Jiraiya had the honor of injecting the man with a slow-moving toxin. This particular poison had been Orochimaru's invention originally, one that he used whenever an enemy was no longer useful, and he wanted to get rid of them while enjoying the sound of their shrieks of agony. Even with that information, though, Gaara remained suspicious of the Hidden Leaf and rarely contacted them. There were very few meetings between him and the Hokage, and the meetings they did have were forced and painfully formal. Hinata spoke up, voicing everyone's thoughts. But Tsunade-sama, what about the Kazekage? Will he allow us into his village? Tsunade sighed. She really was pushing her luck a bit here, something she never seemed to have very much of in the first place. Since we are technically still allied villages, he has to let you in, otherwise his village would look incredibly bad. I'm sure that once he hears about the purpose of your mission he will become much more agreeable. She had a strange glint in her eye after saying the last sentence. Politics were a horrible game, easily manipulated, but could also come in handy in times like this. Now that you have all of the information, are you ready to leave? Yes. They answered in unison. Perfect, Tsunade said with a proud but weary smile. She prayed that this mission would go well. Please Naruto. The Hokage stood at the gates, watching the 6 shinobi and 1 nin dog leave the village. She had wanted to personally see these ninja off to show just how important this mission was to her. With one last look at the fading forms of the Tsunade sighed and turned around to go back to her office. She quickly wiped away the tears that had started to form in her amber eyes. After much thought, Naruto had decided to go to Wind Country. The village hidden in the sand was as good of a place as any to get noticed in, and besides, he had connections there. It did help that the current Kazekage had been like a brother to him before he left Konoha. He preferred not to think of that traitorous village. Regardless, Naruto and Gaara had both shared the burden of being and knew each other's pain. And even though Shukaku no longer resided in Gaara, their friendship never did fade. If anything, it had strengthened. But what was he doing, reminiscing in the past? The future was what he had to look forward to. 2 days ago, Naruto had purposely made quite a scene when he saved a young woman from a group of bandits. After the 10 seconds it took for him to defeat them, the woman had thanked him greatly. As a sign of her appreciation, she had brought Naruto back to the camp where her family and 15 other people were staying and insisted he stay for dinner. When he finally left, the couple of children in the group had stars in their eyes at meeting someone so powerful, and the adults had clear looks of admiration on their faces. Needless to say, word of the blonde shinobi had spread quickly throughout Wind Country. It never did take long for news to be passed on. Naruto estimated that it would take roughly a day before Konoha got wind of him. How perfect, now they'd know exactly where to find him without knowing it was his intention. His ingenious plan was beginning to work. Back in the present day, Masaru and Katsu were quietly walking around the waterfall village. No one had so much as one suspicious thought about them, but what else could you expect from high-level shinobi such as themselves? Their disguises had to be perfect. Continuing down one of the village's main streets, Katsu pulled out a small piece of paper. On it was the drawing of an unusual young woman. She had pale green hair and strange red eyes. Masaru took a quick glance at the picture of their target before scanning the streets with his forest green eyes. After inconspicuously searching the entire street and coming up with nothing, they moved on. 3 hours later darkness began to descend upon the village and the 2 hanged men were still searching. It's a good thing that this village doesn't have any decent shinobi, or we might have been discovered by now, thought Katsu. Beside him, his partner was thinking along the same lines. Unknown to them, a team of 3 Konoha shinobi were rapidly approaching the hidden waterfall village. The village's leader had sent a mission to the Goddamn Hokage, asking her for help protecting the village's fu. He was worried that their village might be a target for attack since they housed her. Tsunade had accepted and sent 3 shinobi to aid her. Ino, Choji, and Shino were the ones assigned to the mission. It was only a matter of time before they arrived at the village. Half an hour later, Masaru and Katsu had laid eyes on a particular girl. She was sleeping peacefully in the grass, mostly hidden by the bushes surrounding her. Masaru smirked. They had finally found her. Ino, Choji, and Shino had just arrived at the village hidden in the waterfall. They passed through the enormous falls with ease and identified themselves to the village guard. He nodded and summoned 2 other guards to lead them to Fu while he remained at his post. The 5 of them set off at a moderate pace to find them and set up protection for her. Not wasting any time, the man supposedly named Katsu grabbed Fu. Her eyes immediately flashed open, revealing insect-like red eyes with no pupils. She furiously struggled against Katsu's grasp, but it was no use. Horrified at his almost inhuman strength, Fu opened her mouth to scream, only to catch a glimpse of terrifying red eyes. She just stared into them, unable to look away. Masaru had released his henge and now stood in front of her, his eyes boring into hers with a cold glare. His raven-colored hair made him look like part of the night itself. His pale skin looked delicate, but it was obvious that he was a strong shinobi by the air of power that floated around him. But it was his terrifying Mangekyo Sharingan eyes that rendered her unable to move. Before her stood Itachi Uchiha, a traitor to Konoha and known member of Akatsuki. Fu shuddered and tried to look away, but she just couldn't. A moment later she heard him whisper something, but couldn't quite make it out. And then she blacked out. Satisfied now that she lay motionless in his grasp, Katsu slung her over his shoulder and looked back at his partner. "I guess there's no need for hinge anymore." Katsu grinned. "I guess you're right." Itachi smirked as Katsu released his own hinge. Navy hair replaced red and strangely shark-like eyes were in place of his previous black. His skin melted into a pale blue and gill-like markings appeared on his face. Hard muscles became visible and a large sword adorned his back. Isam cracked his knuckles, finally. Itachi turned to Fu and quickly cast over her so that she appeared to be a large sack on Kisam's shoulder. "Let's go." The Konoha ninja were running beside the waterfall shinobi, matching them step for step. It was a few moments later when they abruptly stopped. "What is it?" Ino asked. Her bleached blonde hair had grown much longer and now flowed down her back to her waist. She still had those same side bangs that went in front of one of her eyes. One of their escorts looked around, scanning the area for any chakra signatures. "She should be right around here," he said. He nodded to his partner and they began to search for her. The Konoha nins quickly joined them in looking for Fu. Why was it always so hard to keep track of it? Itachi and Kisame flashed in and out of view as they ran at incredible speeds. The unconscious Fu was still being carried by Kisame and she was still disguised as a large sack. The two vanished and reappeared at the edge of a clearing, hoping to get away from the more populated parts of a village. They could not risk being seen. "Where could she be?" asked Choji, who was starting to get an uneasy feeling. I don't know what," stuttered one of the waterfall shinobi. "So much for an easy mission." The green-haired was nowhere to be found. Shino set out a swarm of his bugs to search for any unique chakra signatures. Her status as the container of a tailed beast would definitely give her unusual chakra. Ino cast a look around the group and wondered where this girl could possibly be. There wasn't any attack on the village, so where is she? Ugh, this is not going to be fun if we have to be out all night looking for her. Just then there was a rustling in the leaves of the trees on the other side of the clearing, which they all heard. The five ninjas stiffened and their heads whipped around to the source of the sound. Two figures had just arrived at the edge of the clearing. Their black cloaks with red clouds were easy to recognize. Before them were the raven hair, Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hashigaki. Suddenly, the two froze. Ino gasped as she locked eyes with glaring red orbs with black markings in them. Choji's eyes widened at the sight of the two Akatsuki members. The whole world seemed to freeze as the ninjas just stared at each other. The two waterfall shinobi trembled in fear. Itachi and Kisame were so close to reaching the edge of the village when they heard a gasp. Both missing nins stopped in their tracks. Itachi looked up to see 5 pairs of eyes staring at him and Kisame with various stages of shock. "Oh shit," was the mutual thought. Kisame reached for his massive sword, but Itachi stopped him. "Remember what Leader Sama said," he cautioned. Kisame made an annoyed sound, remembering that he was given orders not to fight. His mood just got a lot worse. Itachi was also unhappy since he personally hated Konoha for what they did to Naruto. They had crushed the dream of a young boy for something he had no control over. It was also kind of Sasuke's fault, stupid little brother. His inner musings were interrupted when the shinobi from Konoha got into fighting stances. These Akatsuki guys will definitely be hard to take down. Ino examined them, trying to figure out the best way to attack. "Wow, that Uchiha sure is hot. Wait, what am I thinking? He's the enemy." She shook her head to clear out all distracting thoughts. This was going to take a lot of focus. Shino sent out more bugs, hundreds of them now pouring out of his sleeves. He would not go down without a fight. Choji spread his legs and began to make the appropriate hand signs for his family. Ino glanced at her teammates and was proud that they all seemed to be just as determined as her. She saw Shino's insects but had long gotten past thinking they were gross. Her blue eyes flashed. The Konoha ninja charged. Kisame made an amused sound and a sigh came from Itachi's direction. The waterfall nins had pretty much fainted already. Boom. Ino's fist crashed into the spot where Kisame had been standing only moments ago. Dismayed, she whirled around only to be met with a punch to the face. Ino was back on her feet in an instant, only to find that her target had once again vanished. Shino went for Itachi, followed closely by Choji. Shino let loose his bugs at the Uchiha traitor, only to find that they wouldn't go anywhere near him. A strange energy surrounded both of the Akatsuki members, something that he had never seen before. It had to be new, he had never read about it in any of the reports, and something that could not have been overlooked. It appeared to be some kind of barrier that prevented them from being marked or tracked. This is bad, Shino thought without much emotion. Joji was about to utter the familiar words to make his body expand, but was cut off by a fist slamming into his stomach. Red eyes glared into his own as he was sent flying backwards. His attacker hadn't even broken a sweat and was just standing there as if nothing had happened. But then, Itachi vanished again. Choji's eyes widened as he felt a presence behind him. Before he could react, however, he was sent flying in the opposite direction. He was clearly outmatched. Itachi and Kisame then vanished at the same time only to reappear a short distance away, standing right next to each other. Ino took note of their ability to function exceptionally well as a team. Then she noticed the sack on the shark man's shoulder. "Release!" she cried, and she was dispelled. They all gasped, even Shino. Fu, that they had come here to protect, had been captured by Akatsuki. The worst possible thing had happened. Oh no. Itachi gave them all the famous Uchiha glare and then placed a hand on Kisame's other shoulder. The blue Akatsuki member grinned, winked at Ino in an exaggerated manner. Ino, Shino, and Choji were baffled, but then something unexpected happened. Black flames overtook the two missing nins, originating from Itachi's palm. The flames flared outwards and lapped greedily at everything around them. 1 second it was a flaring black inferno, and the next it dissipated and then extinguished completely. When the flames cleared, there was nothing there. The Akatsuki members had escaped. And they had another. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time, till then sayonara.